Today we're going to be talking about controls and how understanding them and changing them can influence your motivation in daily life. So the type of controls I'm talking about are the daily behaviors that you do in your life and how difficult they are. So in a sense, like if you were to live a more sedentary life, exposed to a lot of just going on social media and indulging in simple pleasures, your controls could be qualified as like getting up in the morning and immediately scrolling TikTok. And that serves as a baseline. That's like the probably easiest thing you would do in the day is to get on right out of bed, just get on TikTok. That would serve as a baseline for everything else you do in life, everything else you do in the day at least. And so that's what I'm talking about control. So in that type of sedentary pleasure indulging life, the control there is that easiest action. And the point I'm trying to make here is that the easiest thing that you do within a day should feel as hard as the hardest thing you want to actually achieve. And this point signifies that if you want to achieve something, difficult, bigger than yourself, you have to make sure that what you are doing that precedes that in the day is not too dramatic of a gap to actually achieve it. Right? You don't want to go from getting out of bed and immediately succumbing to your 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 need for dopamine to jump into like working out 2 hours a day. It's very hard of a gap to do, right? Your motivation does not jump that high, right? And plus, you don't get the momentum rolling. You don't have the feeling that you actually can achieve that. It's hard, especially in the morning. You're setting the baseline for the rest of the day and how you're gonna roll out, right? If you spike your dopamine up that high, it's hard to even get on a biological neurochemical basis that dopamine to give you the motivation to actually achieve the harder things. So, right? So if you like think of a simple example as working out 2 hours in a day, right? If you were to think about the pleasure indulging person who spends the first 2 hours a day scrolling TikTok and then getting out and then eating like McDonald's, that's like very pleasure. That's like the extreme side of pleasure indulging. It's very hard for that person, based off what I said, to actually be able to think to themselves, right? Hey, it's like 5 p.m. Okay, I have to have discipline in my life now when I didn't the first part of the morning and the first part of the afternoon. I have to now gain the discipline to push myself to go to the gym. Do you see how unrealistic that sounds? That's just not something that's gonna happen, right? You don't have that sense of discipline that's already been built up. And since you don't, it's very hard to actually achieve something that requires discipline, which is why I come back to the idea that the easiest thing that you should do, which is your control, should feel as hard as the hardest thing you're gonna do. An example of that, the same idea of working out, is that instead, right? Instead, in the good example, and where your controls are actually better, instead of scrolling on your phone the first thing in the morning, you do wake up in the morning, make your bed, and do some yoga and meditation first thing in the morning. No other dopamine sources, right? That takes discipline, like maybe 5 out of 10 on the scale of discipline. But doing that, right? Think about your mental state afterwards. First thing in the morning, you push yourself. You told yourself, no, I'm not going to indulge in these simple pleasures. No, I'm not going to do what the first thing my mind wants me to do. No, I'm going to control myself and harness like the motivation to get to do the meditations and yoga, right? You're not crashing your dopamine straight out in the first thing in the morning. And with that train of thought, right? With that momentum already going, that you're saying to yourself, okay, look, I'm being disciplined on myself, right? And also that neurochemical basis and where you're not releasing all those dopamine first thing in the morning, you actually have on those two facets more ability to actually do kind of the hardest thing you want to do late in the day. But really, in reality, like I feel like doing yoga meditation first thing in the morning is probably as hard as getting yourself to go in the gym. So, do you see how that changes in the sense that if you were to set that control in your life to be just a little bit harder, or just to be a little more similar to the goals you want to achieve, you can actually achieve them so much easier. And that comes down to like a psychological basis as well as a literal biological basis. It's very interesting. Another example to get the idea more transparent is um like also if you were wanting to be like more attentive and to engage in more meaningful discussion, like even reading a book, a good habit, right? A good control would be if you were to eat without looking at your phone, or you're telling yourself, look, I'm being solely minded to my food right now. I'm gonna put my attention span straight onto my food, nothing else. That kind of trains you and puts you in a good like state of mind to actually be more willing to like take the time for like 1 hour and read a book later, right? The attention span's not destroyed as if a lot of people nowadays are just scrolling TikTok while eating. Think about what that's telling yourself. You're telling yourself that, look, I can't focus on one thing at a time. I need to be doing two different dopamine intensive tasks, right? You're getting like pleasure from eating the food and the phone, right? You're telling yourself, I need this much stuff for myself. And think about how vastly more the control increases when you do that, right? Rather, if you tell yourself, look, life is slow, right? Be mindful of what you're doing and, put your attention to one thing at a time, which is how we are meant to be. You tell yourself in the very end that I can focus on one thing, and that can lead you to do so many other more meaningful things later, right? The biggest thing that the phone watcher while eating person would do would like be to scroll more TikTok while working, or to be feel bored while working, or to need like break sessions every 10 minutes while working. While the person who actually realizes, like, I'm focusing on this one thing at a time without sacrificing my attention span, without sacrificing my attention, can actually go on to do things that require more depth and more time and energy spent. So it was my 2 cents on his thoughts. Video after a long while. If you have any questions, concerns, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Have a discussion about it. Thank you.